Hey there, this is Katherine Cartwright. Welcome. I've got a fun video using some techniques that I'm going to share with you today to create some cards. And I've got this Make Yourself at Home kit from Hero Arts. These are available at joann.com. They're only online. And they're usually previously released stamps and dies, and they make these beautifully curated kits. So there's a 4x6 stamp set, there's a die set, there is a leaf stencil that is beautiful. There are some half pieces of cardstock. There are also instructions for this one card in particular, but then there's some creative ideas and pictures on the main card. There is some half pieces of cardstock that you can use for card bases or whatever you want to use it for, for layering. And then there is some twine and some 3 ink cubes in this one. And then there's this gold pearls, which is what I lost my mind over. I wanted to play with this product. I have not used this one from Hero Arts, and I'm just showing you how to get the top off. You kind of push it down to remove it. So that's a nice feature. It's easy to get off once you get it off, but I was just showing you that's how you do it. So I'm just playing with it a second. It has a beautiful shine on the back. It says it's a water-based product, and so I decided to check that out. And I'm going to spend some time with it. I will show you that at the end, how it dries. It's really, really pretty. Okay, so I took the stencil out and I kept the package intact to use it as a palette. And I am just going to play with this. So I'm just having fun. I'm not expecting a certain result. I just wanted to have fun with it and share with you what you could do. So this is watercolor paper. I've got a large paintbrush here. I've added some water and I am painting this through the stencil. It's going to be a little messy because you are using a liquid as opposed to a more solid substance. In the next one, I'm going to use some texture paste. But on this, I wanted to see if I could paint with it. So I wanted to darken it up a little bit. So I'm going to take some of this caramel ink and squeeze that onto my palette. And then I'll add some water to that. I've just got some little paint brushes here that I'm using, and I've got a little water bottle too that I'll use to spray. So I'm just going to darken this up a little bit and add this through my stencil. And again, you're going to get more of what I call an organic look, which some people may say a little bit of a hot mess. I am totally okay with that. I like a rustic look on my background sometimes. So, and this is just a fun way to play with it, a fun way to apply it. And I'm enjoying using that larger brush. It makes it a little bit easier to control. And I'm going to pull this up and let you see. You can see a little bit of where the water smushed through. And I'm just going to grab a napkin, a little paper napkin here that I keep. I keep these in my craft room, as well as like a microfiber. I usually have those handy, but they're all dirty. I need to wash them. But I'm just going to mop up a little bit of where the water's smushed through. But it just gives a really fun effect. And there's a lot of shine. It's a little hard to see on the camera. You can see it on my palette. But when it dries, there is a ton of that gold shine. It's a little bit darker because I did add that ink, that dye-based ink. But it just ended up being a really fun technique. And again, I did use watercolor paper. I find that this kind of technique works better with a watercolor paper. I have this metallic texture paste. This is from Ranger. I was looking for my regular texture paste, but I think I actually used it up. And this I recently received. So I'm going to use it. It already has a little bit of a shimmer. You can see that at the top of the screen in the package. But I want to add some of this gold in here. I wanted to see what I got. So I've added some of that, and then I'm going to come back and add a little bit more. I'm not using water on this. So I just moved that brush out of the way. I want to keep this without water. I'm just going to add in the gold pearls directly. And I'm just using my Nouveau spatula here to mix this up. I love that spatula. It's one of my favorite ones. I guess it's silicone, so really nothing sticks to it. And that's great when you're using a paste or something like that. It has a nice firm head, but it's flexible at the same time. And it's just a great, great product to have if you enjoy working with some pastes and things like this. So I'm just going to take that paste and run it through my stencil. And I'm not pressing too hard. It has a nice body to it, this metallic one, which is very similar to the regular paste. It may be a little creamier than the other. So I'm just working this into the paper, but not smushing so hard that it smushes underneath my stencil. And I'm just going to get most of it covered. I don't cover every inch of it, which is fine with me. So I'm going to cap that back up, and then I will peel this away and show you what I got. I just did this on regular white cardstock, just FYI. You could put it on Bristol cardstock, and then you could ink blend over the texture paste when it dries. So there are a lot of options when you're using texture paste, but you can see how that beautiful gold is, and you can see just a little hint of gold in this texture paste card. So I'm going to set those aside and let them dry, and then I'll visit them again. Here is that watercolor paper I use. I usually use Distress. I do have some other brands though on hand that I use. I like the Distress because it's already cut, and then I can just trim it down as needed. So I enjoy that aspect. I usually pick that up when it's on sale. Okay, so I'm going to take this to my mat, and then I will do some watercoloring with this. I'm putting a little piece of tape on there to hold it down, and I've got my magnet as well. I kind of cleaned up my palette, so to speak, and I am going to smush these inks onto my palette. I've got the moss and the yellow. I can't remember what it was called, sorry. It's in the description. And then caramel, that beautiful kind of creamy brown. And I'm gonna watercolor with these. I really went a little off task. I thought I would use this to create a paper that I could die cut with, but I ended up actually really liking how it turned out, so I just kept it as a background. Now I will say these are dye-based inks. They are not water reactive inks. Hero Arts has a whole line of water reactive inks. So this will not work quite the same as a reactive product. Saying that, I think they work great. So what a dye ink does is dye the paper. So you can see as soon as you apply it, it's going to dye that paper. So you can see where those larger streaks are. That's where the most ink was applied. And I actually ended up really loving this. It ended up being really kind of neat. I like the movement that it added with that little spot kind of the ink. But just know that it will be a little bit different than if you're using a reactive ink. But I think that it works great. And this is a watercolor paper as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. So I am going to clean up my mess a bit. And I am going to bring my heat tool over here and dry this a bit, because I want to add some of the gold pearls. And I don't want it to run everywhere. So if I add it since it's a water-based product, obviously it would run all over. And so I'm going to heat it just a little bit. I'm looking for my heat tool here, and I'm going to dry that a bit. It's not totally dry, but just to get most of the moisture off. And then I'm going to apply some of the gold pearls on top. But I actually ended up loving the way that it looks. So I changed my idea a little bit. I thought I would use this to die cut, and you could. But I really liked how it looked as a background, so I decided to keep it as is. So once I get that pretty dry, I'm going to pull out my gold pearls again, and I'm just bringing my platform back in here. I also like to use, I have a little mat too that I use for messy projects like this, but I've been doing some stenciling with this today as well. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the gold pearls. And this bottle is very generous. You can tell I'm using a fair amount of this for the different techniques, and there is still plenty in that bottle. So the sizing is really, really great. So I was impressed with the amount of product that you get. Now, initially, I pulled out this little tool from Ranger, and I didn't like how it delivered. So I changed my mind and pulled back out my little paintbrush, my little water paintbrush, and I started flicking. I probably should have done this in a box because it got everywhere. I had a lot of fun flicking this everywhere. Thankfully, it's a water-based product and I can get it up. And my craft area tends to stay messy. You know, when you're working with a mixed media, sometimes things just get messy. So I'm going to flick that on there. I'm not adding too much water. My brush is a little bit damp, so you can see it's reacting a little bit there. But I wanted to get some nice big splotches. So I'm just continuing to flick that on there, and I'm picking it up to see if I like it, if I want a little more here, a little more there. And then I will let that dry as well. And I'll have that beautiful gold shine, and I love the way the little kind of smudges on the side look in my background. So kind of a happy little accident there. Not exactly what I intended, but I actually liked how it turned out. And a little bit more, I just can't stop. And then I'm going to finish it off and say, okay, enough. And then, but it dries beautifully and there's a terrific shine. Okay, now I am happy. All right, I also wanted to mention too, with this product, I wanted to try this on some dark cardstock. And since it's water-based again, I wanted to add a little bit of water and brush it across a darker cardstock. I'm using a brown here, and I wanted to see if I would get all of that beautiful shimmer, and look at that. So pretty. So you could use a blue or, black cardstock, a darker one, I think just would let all of that shimmer show up. And you can see as it's drying that it just comes to the surface even more. And so by adding just a little bit of water, it allows me to paint my paper. And again, this is just a basic cardstock, a regular cardstock, nothing fancy, not a watercolor. So it will pull up a little bit on the sides. So you'll need to kind of flatten it a little bit if you add that water. As you wet those fibers, they're going to react and pull a little bit. But look how pretty that is. You could die cut that. You could turn those into sparkly letters, any color you wanted. If you wanted a sparkly letter, but you didn't have maybe a cardstock for that, like a gold cardstock, you could create your own. Oh my goodness, the possibilities are limitless. I kept all of these dies together for this. I pulled out a piece of watercolor cardstock and I wanted to run it through and cut out every piece on there. And it cut beautifully, and I'll probably save the piece that came out and maybe fill that back in with some pattern paper or some solid colors, maybe create another way to use that paper. Always wanting to recycle, and especially the positive and negative. It's fun to try and challenge yourself to use it. Okay, so this video is going to be, this part of the video is just going to be me painting. I am using those same dye inks again, and I'm just going to run them around all over the watercolor. So you could paint your watercolor paper before, but since I wanted to do some detail work, I'm just going to do it easily by hand instead of painting it first and then die cutting it. That way I can kind of control where the color goes and the depth of it. And here's a little piece of, kind of a piece of wheat, I guess that would be. And then I'm going to clean between colors, and I will move on to another shade here. Again, using my palette, and then I start just smooshing on my stencil holder. And I love this green, it's so pretty. And I love to watercolor, and because it's very forgiving, and you can also control the depth of it. So if you want it darker, you can just go back over it with the same color, and it will dye that color some more, that paper some more, I should say. And I love this little, I think it's kind of a big mum. And I saw some of these in the store the day that I made this video. And they were these beautiful, really brown, kind of goldish mums. And they were so pretty. So that's why I chose that color. Now, obviously, you could pick some different colors for this. I'm just sticking to what is in the kit to honor what was in there. And just to show you, if you were to purchase this kit, what you would be getting. And then I'm going to spend some more time here doing these leaves. I love that beautiful stem. So you could pair that with the mum, or you can pair it with I'm going to make it a sunflower. So I'm going to put a little brown in there, but it can be whatever color flower you want it to be. And then I'll finish any others off camera. I will say those two little tiny pieces on the left, I kept kind of messing with them, trying to figure out what are they? Are they leaves? And then I realized they were the cutouts from the bow. I don't end up using the bow, but anyway, if you're wondering what are those two little things, they are nothing. They're trash to be recycled. So I just wanted to clarify, if you happen to watch this video and you get this kit and you're wondering what are those two little things, they're just the centers of the bow. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to start putting some of these cards together. Everything is dry and ready to assemble. I wanted to show you what I did with some of the twine. I took it and taped it down in a couple of spots to make kind of a random flow of the string. I had a hexagon in my craft stash that I die cut in the yellow, and I stamped Happy Thanksgiving. And then I'm using some foam here to pop it up. You could leave it just like that, and then I'm going to glue this onto the yellow. So I kind of kept this more of a tone on tone, so to speak. Not a ton of contrast, but more things that were coordinating with it. And then I'll add that on there. And I could have stopped there, but I had a couple of these green leaves that I had painted that I wanted to use. So I'm just figuring out exactly where I want them to go. So that's just going to be a little bit of my pop of color to finish off this card. I'm adding the foam to the top because it's going to hang off of that Happy Thanksgiving, and then add a little glue to the bottom of my leaf. This one will just be glued directly onto my Happy Thanksgiving shape. And so cute. You can see all of that shine with the texture paste mixed with the gold pearls. Okay, I took a piece of the orange cardstock and I did a little tone on tone I did pull a little orange ink out of my craft stash. I think it was a Hero Arts ink, but I think it was orange soda, now that I think about it. And I just did a very gentle blend through the stencil. You can see it on camera, but it's very subtle. And then I'm going to pull out my sunflower here, and then that smaller flower, and I'm going to glue these directly onto the card, at least my stem. And then I'll use a little foam to pop up the big flower. So pretty. And again, that watercolor just has such a fun look to it and kind of rustic, which I love in the fall. I'll add some foam here, and then I will pop that up. And I'm sure on camera I sound funny. I've had a cold a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still getting over it. I feel great, but I sound not great. I'm totally healed, so to speak, but my voice is still a mess. So I'm sorry I sound a bit like a frog in this video, but time is of the essence. So you can't complain. You just got to keep on keeping on. Okay, so I got that beautiful glitter paper. I saw too that Joann's recently has added some of their glitter paper from Hero Arts. I have ordered a couple of packs. I'm going to try them out, but I have always liked their glitter paper, so they just had some different colors. I'm going to try them out probably in a future video, but just FYI, Joann's has a lot of great Hero Arts products available. And I will finish this one off with a large center dot on the smaller flower, and then I've got some little dots in the middle of this one, and I will let that dry. Here is that background that I created using the paintbrush and a little water, just brushing that onto this darker cardstock. Just another fun way to use these pearls. I'm going to add this to a piece of that brown glitter paper. And so this is a kind of a glitzy card, I would say. A lot of high shine and a little bit of a drama to it, which I'm all about. And then I'm going to glue this to a card base. And I dug out a little banner die from my craft stash to stamp some of these sentiments. The with gratitude fits perfectly in there. And there's never a time, I think, when you can't say thank you enough. So I'm always looking to have gratitude. And I was just checking to make sure that was dry. And it was. And it doesn't stick to your finger at all. It really just goes right into that paper. It's so pretty. So I took the die and I cut it out of a green cardstock, the leaf. So this is an additional die cut that I made. And there is that brown flower, that goldish brown flower that I used with the caramel ink. And I added a piece of foam and added another piece of the moss behind it, just to give it a little pop off the paper against that gold, and that the brown hopefully didn't get lost in it. And I think the effect worked pretty well. And then I'm going to take a little bit of glue here and glue this directly at the top with gratitude. And this is one of those cards that I feel falls a little flat on screen. So much prettier in person, the shine and just the drama of it. And there is that one. Beautiful. Okay. All right. So I'm still going. I told you I went kind of crazy with this product, and then I had to make cards with the backgrounds. So here is the one that I painted through the stencil onto watercolor paper. I've still got some of that twine left. I also have a tag from my stash that I stamped Happy Thanksgiving. And then I added the sentiment, I am truly grateful for everything you do. I know who I'm going to send that to. My mom. I won't see her on Thanksgiving this year, but I'm always thankful for everything she does in my life, and my dad too, of course. But my mom always loves to get my cards. She always enjoys them. So I'm going to send that to them since I won't see them this Thanksgiving. And then, so I took that twine and taped it around the back and ran it 3 times. And then this tag, I wanted to add a little bow to it. So I'm going to trim a piece down and tie that on there. And I probably should have made my little tails a little shorter. It made it a little bit harder to tie. I find that, you need to leave your tails not too long, or especially with twine, you'll get a tangly mess. But I'm making it work. So I was going to make just a single bow, but I had enough string, I should say, to create a bigger bow. So what I like to do is I kind of wrap it around 3 times, or usually I do 3 to 5. Nature, likes odd numbers. So in design, I often incorporate that as well, an odd number. So I did 3 loops, and I laid that onto my string, and then I tied that. So you can see I get a fun little bow there, and then some kind of double tails on the end. So it's just kind of something different. I enjoy doing that sometimes, especially with little twine on tags, or in this case on my card. And I love how that turned out. So now I'm going to take some foam. I've got some foam sheets in my craft stash. I'm going to add those to this so I can really pop that up. And then I'm going to hold off putting that on before I finish assembling the rest of my card. So since I have all that twine on the back, I'm going to pop this card up too. And so I'm going to run that piece of foam across the middle. But then I decided I needed a little bit more foam at the top. I should have put a little foam on camera on the right hand side, I guess you would say. That gap that's there, I should have filled that. I had to go back and fill it afterwards because it wouldn't kind of stick down because of the twine. So I needed to put one more piece there to make it uniform. But you get the idea. I'm pretty much covering the whole thing and adding that to my card piece. So I'm going to lay that down, get a nice uniform look, and then I will glue this to my yellow card base. And I used up all my cardstock. I don't think I had any left. And so, and I only had to supplement just a little bit to make it all work. Okay, so that one is coming together nicely. So I'm just moving my twine a little bit, getting my tag on there with that beautiful shiny background. Okay, well, thanks for sticking with me. Here is that, I mentioned that earlier, here is the dried heart that I made using, I just wanted you to see it up close, how beautiful it is. And again, the camera does not do it justice. It's even prettier in person. So here it's just a recap of the cards I made. Here's that one I used the technique of painting through my stencil onto watercolor paper. Here's the texture paste that I mixed with some of the gold pearls and added some beautiful shimmer and shine to that one. Just a totally different look. And then I've got the watercolor background with the With Gratitude. I added a few of those leaves on there, and just so pretty. And I love the way that shine just pops off the page. But it's subtle. It's really subtle, but it's a nice little hint. Here is that painted background with my mom added there with the With Gratitude. And then my Happy Autumn. So cute. And then you can see a little bit of that stencil. So it's just a great kit. I hope you enjoyed the techniques I shared with you. Check out the pearls from Hero Arts. And thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.